Welcome to the Strong Roots podcast. It's all about interviewing everyday, ordinary Christians who have strong roots of faith and then applying it to our own lives. Whether you are seeking, whether you're new to faith, or maybe you've been following Jesus for a really long time, come grow strong roots with us. Hey, Strong Roots. We are talking about the idol of career, and I am here with Aubrey, and she's the communications director and also just a really great friend, and it has been so awesome seeing her root her identity in Jesus and not her career specifically, because that's what we're talking about, but so many other areas. So Aubrey, thank you for being here. I cannot wait to hear what you have to say, and off the gate, I want to ask you, what have you believed about your career that has ended up not being true?
What haven't I believed about my career that has ended up not being true?
Right.
I think at one point when I was deciding what I was going to do, I thought it was the most important thing about me. Like, I thought it was going to be the thing that defined me, and that that would set up my life in the direction I'd have to go. Like in high school, it was, I'm going to go into the medical field and that's going to set up my life in that direction. Or after high school, when I chose this role, I was like, man, I'm setting up my life to go in a very specific direction because of my career. And that wasn't true in the slightest. Like, at the end of the day, a career is really important. And it does mean like some decisions are going to be made because of the direction you're choosing.
Yeah.
But also, like, we're going to be obedient to whatever God's calling us to do.
Right.
As we look ahead and as we direct our lives towards Him, not towards a career or an end goal or a salary or anything like that.
Absolutely. So what does God say is true about a career? What is it? What are we supposed to do within it?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think it's, the Bible's clear, like Colossians 3:23, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as if working for the Lord and not for human masters. And I think there's two big pieces in there. I think it's the all your heart piece. Yeah. So your career, whatever you're doing, whether it's a barista or chasing babies to your house, or if it's, designing graphics and sending mailers, in my role, it's all your heart. Yeah. And I think the other piece is too, we're remembering we are, I have a boss who's a person who, I see every day, but beyond that, I will answer to the Lord at the end of my life. And everything I'm doing right now, I will give an answer for, and I'll give an answer for why I didn't work my hardest, or why I skipped something, or why I loafed, or why I don't know, did anything. Yeah. So I think it's those two pieces within that verse are things that I have to keep myself centered in. Mm-hmm. Because they're both things, they're proclivities I have both ways.
Right. So how have you seen in your life your friends or yourself make an idol of their career?
I think for me, I spent the first 3 years working here at the church. And in my mind, what I was doing was filling time until I could do what I really wanted to do. Right. Which at that point in my life, the thing I really wanted to do was become a wife and a mom. Yeah. And so I did this, I worked here, I did the things, and it was just, I'm only doing this until. Yep. And it made it really hard to have any type of not actual longevity, because I'd been here for 3 years, obviously, but it made it really hard to think about a future. Yeah. Because I was determining this is only for a season. This is only for a little bit. This is whatever. There's going to be an end date on this. And it wasn't until I really recognized I'm going to do what God's calling me to do today faithfully. Yeah. And tomorrow I'm going to do what God calls me is doing tomorrow faithfully. But I'm not going to do tomorrow's task today faithfully. Yep. I'm going to do today's task faithfully today. That's from an Elizabeth Elliot sermon. I'm sure she said it way more eloquently. But learning that, learning that I need to be faithful exactly where I am right now, made it much easier to enjoy what God had me doing. Yeah. And also, made me a better coworker. It made me a better friend. It made me a better everything, because I was actually invested in what I was doing here right now, instead of looking ahead to a potential possible maybe future time.
What did it take for you to smash that idol of, I am pretty much you're saying your life was on pause in a way, my life's going to start when I become a mommy and when I have kids. Was it that Elizabeth Elliot sermon? What was it that truly God broke through to we're smashing this right now?
I think it was it was a combination of believing that and not just hearing it and knowing it's true, but like taking the time to really believe it and write it on my heart as God's truth. And like, I'm going to do what God's calling me to do today faithfully, mixed with God just really like having to break me down and be like, hey, all of these desires you have, they're good things. Like, and what, like for other people, if they're like, man, that's not relatable. Like I actually have huge career aspirations to do this thing, like to be this way, to make this much money, to be this position in a company, to manage people, whatever it is. I think when you recognize that you're going to do what God's calling you today faithfully, the best, and that when we do today's faithful task, like it prepares us for the future faithful task that we'll have to do then. But we can't like skip ahead in the process. And so I think for me, it was just having to recognize that I had this desire, but it had to be put into the context of what God was actually calling me to do. Because at that point, like God was actually calling me to be a communications director who gave all her heart to what God was calling me to do. So
absolutely. What distracts you from being faithful in the moment the most? What are the easiest distractions?
The easiest distractions, I think, would be fear.
Yeah.
Of if I give my time to this, where's my time not going to?
Yep.
Like that kind of indecision of, oh man, should I put my time into this? I think another one is super common, not so much for me, but I think money is a huge factor.
Oh yeah.
And people not being faithful to what God's calling them to do today. Yeah. I think people have this fear, like, and that is probably a part of fear, like being taken care of and having the right materials that you want to do to live the life you want to live. Like that is something that I think distracts a lot of people and something that has in seasons distracted me too.
Right.
I also think like glamour.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like just,
and
not in the actual way of glamour, but there was and has been and continues to be a part of me that's like, man, my friends that I knew back in the day are looking at me on social media. And I think for like, I would talk to people who I went to high school with, and I've been graduated now for a handful of years. Like I've been out of high school longer than I was in high school, right? And I see people and they're like, oh, you still work there? And I'm like, yeah, I do. And I think for a long time I felt this like, oh, am I supposed to have done something else?
Right.
And I think when I finally was able to just own like, no, I do still work there and I love it. And it is exactly what God's calling me to do today. And I found so much joy and life in doing it. And when I was able to own it and not be afraid of like what they think about what that looks like, it gave me a ton of freedom to enjoy what God was calling me to do and not be worried about their thoughts or opinions.
Well, I think it can be flipped both ways, because in my experience, you know, when I was a stay-at-home mom, you know, people be like, what do you do? And it's like, I'm a mom. And then it was like, oh, awkward silence, right?
Yeah.
Or even flip it. I've had moms be like, oh, so do you stay at home? And like, no, I actually work, blah, blah. Oh, like there's this weird like idol that we've made out of even being a mom and not working and working. And if we are living to please people, there's no way. Like, we're not like, there's definitely, I feel like there's a lot of polarization in our world, like working, not working, breastfeed, bottle feed. Like we could go on to like all the things that like, I'm going to put my flag in the ground for this and idolize it. And I just love that you touched on like, we have to work as though we're working for the Lord and not for man, because man is not the person we're going to stand before. And like, it is God. So when we answer, no matter what people think of us or our career or what we're doing, we can stand confidently because we know God called me here, and there's no shame. There's no shame or condemnation in that. Like, and I'm going to do it faithfully.
Absolutely. It's good.
So
it's good.
Yes.
And it's a good thing when we can, you know, embrace that we're living in obedience to God, and like can confidently look ourselves in the mirror and be like, I woke up today and I was obedient to God. That brings a lot of victory. Oh yeah. And there's nowhere you'd rather be than in the place God has called you to, and obedience ultimately. So some people may be listening and be like, well, I really don't like my job. So this, I don't even know what I'm watching. You know? Yeah. What would you say to someone who's like, I don't struggle with idolatry of career because my career right now, I'm working at McDonald's, or like whatever. What would you say to that? I would say you're not exempt.
Yep. Yeah.
I think like truthfully, I think I have actually at my worst, when I was the least happy in the job I was doing, that is when I idolized my career the most because I was believing, wishing, hoping, daydreaming like that I would get this other opportunity to do this other thing and that would bring me hope and satisfaction and bring me all the things that I felt like I was missing in that time.
Yeah.
And like at my worst, when I didn't like my job the most is when I idolized my career the most because I was looking to that to be the thing that filled me and to be the thing that brought me satisfaction and the thing that brought me like joy and excitement in life and not to the Lord. And like an idol is anything that we think is going to bring us life that's not God.
Right.
And like it wouldn't have. And I'm so glad that God like directed my steps to be obedient to him because I have since found like a lot of life in doing the things that he's calling me to right now, but almost didn't.
Right. So what does God say about our calling and purpose? Because I hear all the time, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, speak to that. What is
love that? Yeah, I love this question. I like the purpose of every single Christian. Like, you got this in the bag. I promise this applies to you. Is to be a part of God's kingdom work by sharing the gospel with people around you. And you have to contextualize that for what that looks like for you.
Yeah.
And like, if you can do that in the career you're in and in the job you're in, like you're within God's will.
Yep.
And I think like sometimes God gives us the power and the opportunity to just make a decision.
Yep.
And I think when he gives us that chance, like we really should contextualize, like, how can I best share Jesus in these two role options?
Yep.
How can I serve God in his kingdom? Like, what is going to build God's kingdom here on earth more? And like, that is at the end of the day, what our purpose is this side of eternity.
It's so true. And I remember all I wanted to do was be a mom. All I wanted to do was have kids. And I was miserable and unhappy because this idol didn't bring life. Obviously, you know, and it wasn't until I started actually living out my faith and bringing my kids to McDonald's and talking to Jesus with the people I was meeting at the gym. It wasn't until I actually did what you're saying we need to do in every context, no matter, that I actually truly had joy because I was living out the God-given purpose that all Christians have. And it was a game changer. And I think for me, that was the moment that well, you know, they rear their little heads up, these idols, but like truly was like, I'm smashing this idol of career in whatever, like, and I am going to live and share the gospel in every context in every season of my life. And isn't it the best?
Yeah. It's way better than the alternative.
Yes. And you can do it anywhere and in any season and in any stage. Like, I love that saying, if you're not dead, God's not done.
Yeah.
Like, even when we're 80 in at Oak Grove.
Grandma, like, you can do it. You can do it. Like,
yes. And just because we don't have a career and we're retired, like, we still have purpose because we get to share the love and hope of Jesus wherever we are.
Yeah.
So, question for you. What encouragement would you give a friend working hard to pursue their career goals and dreams?
I would encourage them to run as fast and hard as they can at the Lord.
Yeah.
First. And like secondarily towards these other goals and making sure they're putting them in the correct space in their life. And like if they're able to run as hard and fast as they can at God and also like accomplish these career aspirations, I'm going to cheer you on every step of the way. Like that is amazing. But I think if it's pulling you away from this other like purpose that you know you have, it's not worth it.
Right.
And like, it's not worth giving up God's purpose for a paycheck.
Oh, absolutely. So you are in the stage of life where a lot of people are actually going into the careers that they chose in college or like all the things. What have you seen? What is the difference between somebody who is just like going to get the paycheck, looking for like, okay, this is my identity, from people who are rooting their identity in their career versus people who have a career, but their identity is rooted in Jesus? Like, What would you say is the key differences in those two groups of people?
I think one of the key differences that's like observable is who they are at work.
Yes.
I think like, man, if you look in the mirror and at work, you're like, I'm a different person. I just show up and like they're not bringing the joy of the Lord into their office or into their work site or into their whatever. Like, oh man, like you're not there like for the Lord and like doing your career to honor God. And I think on the flip side, like people can show up and do the lowliest of jobs with the joy of the Lord in their hearts and like the purpose of serving God. And so I think that's one of the ways that like it's observable.
Yeah.
But I also know like it's not always easily observable.
Yeah. True.
And so it's like a heart thing that you have to have like enough self-awareness to be able to read like, man, where is my heart in this? Like, what is my motivation behind this? And I think that takes a lot more soul searching and a lot more time of like prayer and like really reflecting on why did I like join in the office gossip?
Right.
Like, man, am I really like pursuing the Lord the way I say I want to here? Or on the flip side, like, did I work hard because I love God, or did I work hard because I wanted to hear my boss say I did a good job?
Right.
And that's me. Like, I say that because that's me. And I think it is a constant battle that you have to continually fight, especially like if you fall into the category of people who are people pleasers.
Yeah.
Because it's really easy to want to please people because they're right there.
Yes.
Nodding and giving you thumbs up or whatever they're doing.
Yep.
But that comes from a heart posture of like, hey, like I am putting God constantly back at the center, back at where it should be. Like I'm continually putting my heart and this idol like at the foot of the cross.
Yeah.
Because that's what matters.
So what spiritual disciplines, you kind of touched on it, have helped you not to keep the idol of careers, like God in its right place? I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Like what have you done? What are things that have really helped you not make your career an idol?
I think it would be like processing.
Yeah.
For me, I'm a verbal processor and I write. Like I process well like when I write. And so it's talking to people about like, hey, I did this did this thing and I felt really good about it. And I like wasn't just like proud of the work I produced. Like I found purpose and joy in that moment.
Yeah.
In what they said about me. And like that to me in that moment was more important than me doing it because I love the Lord. And so processing through that with people who I trust, mentors or godly friends, like, and just confessing it. So I think it's both processing through it and like helping suss out, like, was I just proud of the work I produced? Which I don't think is bad, like to be excited about doing a good job.
Right.
But processing through that and making sure it's not becoming like, I am not actually just proud of the work I produced. I really liked receiving their compliments.
Right. Absolutely.
And that became more important to me than serving them or serving the Lord in that moment. And so I think like confessing to a friend, but also having a godly friend who you can talk through those things with and making sure that at the end of the day, it gets really fuzzy. And so at the end of the day that you are living in confession and walking out confession with people.
Yeah.
And also like for me, writing too helps a lot. Like I write a lot of my prayers.
Yeah.
And that helps me process like, where's my like heart in this really? Like I can say with my mouth it's there or think in my brain it's there. But at the end of the day, like God sees the desires of my heart and he knows. And like, I'm asking him to help me seek it out and search it out and figure out like, is it in him or is it in people or other things?
And I love that even just going to God, like you say you journal, but being like, hey, I don't know. Sometimes I don't know my heart. Right. Like what, if that was ungodly, if I was rooting my identity in that work, will you forgive me and show me and help me? Like help me not do it again. Because a lot of times I don't know how. Because it's such a well-worn path in my mind. Yeah. Like I do something good, I want a sticker. You know what I mean? Like, and that, you know, what is that called? Like positive reinforcement. I want a positive reinforcement. And that's not how heavenly things really work a lot of times. We get our positive reinforcement in eternity. You know, there's treasure that we're earning in heaven. But we don't always see it in the now.
Yeah.
And I think going to God, I love that you said that, going to God and just really being like, okay, I'm going to confess this to you. Because after you confess to somebody or talk to them, but like, God, you know my heart. And what is that? What's that verse? It's a psalm. It's like, you know, that.
My inmost being, that one?
No, it was like, I'll paraphrase it. It's like, search me, O Lord, and know my heart, test. And, come on, Christian school.
I know. I should know this.
And see if there's any offensive way in me.
Yeah, that's
like,
good.
Do you know what
Yeah, that's.
what he's saying is like, test me, look in me, see if there's anything that offends you, and like, show me the path that I'm supposed to take. Probably like that's more Message translation right there.
Yeah.
But it's so good. And I feel like that's exactly what you said. But okay, flip it. Is there anything when talking about idolizing a career that you're like, Kristin, I think people might want to hear what you have to say about this, or you do?
I think you've had, we touched on this a little bit, but you've had both the career at home and the career at the church. Like, how has God transformed your heart in what a career actually is based on what society says a career should be? Right.
I think you hit it in like, it's sharing the gospel and Jesus in wherever you are. But I think so I was a stay-at-home mom first, and then I was a working mom. But I think what being a working mom really taught me is they both help me be a better Christian. Like what I'm learning at work helps me love and point my kids to Jesus better at home. And what I'm learning at home helps me love and point my coworkers and the congregation better to Jesus at church. And it's not separate. Like it's not, I think a lot of times we're like, okay, this is my work self, this is my home self. But like as Christians, he uses all things for the good of those who love him. And until that was a realization that took me probably 2 years of working at the church to really be like, okay, both of these areas and arenas in my life are, if I allow, are making me more like Christ. And I'm going to be able to lead people more to him through both of these areas if I don't compartmentalize. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it was a game changer because I'm a better mom because I work, and I'm a better leader because I'm a mom. And it's just been beautiful. And I trust that, I mean, those are both gifts. Like, and he could take both those things away from me, and even that would help me be a better Christian. He uses all things for the good if we allow him to, you know? So I think that's the thing I've learned the most. But thank you so much, Aubrey.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it was so good. And Strong Roots, you know, I always love to leave a challenge for you. And I think the biggest takeaway that I have from Aubrey is that you are not exempt from creating an idol of career. Whether you are a stay-at-home mom, whether you are in a career you don't like, whether you are living the dream and you're doing the thing you always dreamed about as a child, like you are always susceptible to creating an idol and putting your career above God. So I want you to ask you the question, where in your life are you letting your identity be in your career or your status more than God? And what can you do to switch the position and put God first? Thank you so much for joining us, and I cannot wait to catch you next time. Bye, Strong Roots. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of the Strong Roots podcast. If you enjoyed it, make sure to check us out on all our other social media platforms. And I want to let you know that I am personally praying that your roots stay strong.